Hello and welcome, I'm your CodeMonkey, and this is a pretty quick video just highlighting some changes with visual scripting in Unity 2021. As you might know, visual scripting in Unity is actually based on Bolt, which was a third-party tool that Unity bought. So if you're using Unity 2019 or 2020, then you use visual scripting through the Bolt package. However, if you're using Unity 2021, then visual scripting is now built directly into the engine, so there's no extra packages you need to install. There's only a handful of minor changes, so if you're searching for Bolt tutorials, all of those should still work in Unity 2021, just with a few minor tweaks. Speaking of that, I made a complete visual scripting course going from start to finish. Everything I teach in the course is still up to date, you just need a few minor changes if you want to follow it with Unity 2021. The course teaches you everything about visual scripting through the making of 3 complete games, starting off with a simple platformer game, then moving on to a more complex action RPG with tons of features like multiple weapons, enemies, dungeons, shops, skills, and so on. And finally, the last game is a really awesome FPS that teaches you how to use visual scripting in 3D with tons of weapons, a really nice hookshot ability, and an awesome boss fight. Check out the complete course with a link in the description. So let's see those minor changes. The first one is, like I mentioned, how you install it. In Unity 2019 or 2020, you go into the Asset Store and grab the Bolt package. Then you open up the package in Package Manager and import it. And then pops out the Bolt Setup Wizard. Okay, so that's the install process for Unity 2019 or 2020. For Unity 2020, it's instead installed as a built-in package. So you go into the Package Manager, and up here select the Unity registry, and simply scroll down and find the Visual Scripting package. Now in Unity 2020, you have a Quick Setup Wizard menu, whereas on Unity 2021, this does not exist. So over here, you just go ahead and click on Next, and then here it asks you a really interesting question. So do you want some human naming or programmer naming? So this has to do with what text shows up on the nodes, and this one is also different in Unity 2021. In the new version, you no longer have the option, the only one you get is human naming. So continuing the Unity 2020 wizard, over here you see some assembly options. This is for more advanced use cases where you want to load some external libraries. So in most cases, just leave everything on default and hit on Next. Then you've got a list of types, again for more advanced use cases where you want to add your own custom types as nodes. So again, in the beginning, just click on Generate. Alright, so after a bit, everything is generated and we have Bolt fully installed and ready to be used in our Unity 2020 project. Now, these last two things that we saw, the assemblies and types, on Unity 2021, they are instead on the project settings. So you go up here into Edit, then down into Project Settings. And then here on the left, select the Visual Scripting tab. And up here, you've got both. Instead of assemblies, they are simply called the Node Library. So you can expand and you see all of the various assemblies. So this is where you would add things like, for example, if you wanted to use Cinemachine, you would add that assembly in here. And same thing for the types are up here, the type options, you can add all of the types that you want. So in Unity version 2021, these are on the project settings, so you would do all those changes and then regenerate all the units. Okay, back into Unity 2020. Now when you start actually using it, in order to make our visual script, you go into Add Component. And again, this is a small difference between Unity 2020 and 2021. In 2020, you go under Bolt and then you add a flow machine. Whereas over here in Unity 2021, instead when you add the component, you go down here under Visual Scripting, and then you add a script machine. So where previously you had a flow machine, right now you've got a script machine. This is just a name change, but they are the exact same thing. Then in order to create a graph, in version 2020, they are called macros or flow macros, whereas in version 2021, they are simply called graphs. But again, just a name change, they're all the exact same thing. So you just click on New, and it creates the visual script. So here in Unity 2020, as you double click on the flow macro, it opens up the flow graph window, and in version 2021, when you open it, the first time you do, it's actually going to handle a bunch of processing, and then it opens up the same graph window. Now there is a slight visual change, but again, everything still works exactly the same. Now another difference is over here in Unity 2020, you have 2 other visual scripting windows as separate windows. So you go up here into Window, and you separately open up the Graph Inspector, and the other one is the Variables. So these are 2 separate windows. So for example, you can dock them anywhere. So dock them down there, and there you go, you've got these separate windows. Also still in Unity 2020, you have the graph window, And right now it looks like this, and if you maximize it, it automatically opens up the graph window and the variable inspector. However, it will only automatically show these two tabs if the monitor resolution is big enough. So they only show up after a certain size, so if you have a small monitor resolution, they might not automatically show up, so if they don't, then you need to manually use the docked separate windows. So if I play around with the size of my Unity window, if it's big like this, it shows up those two, and if I make it quite a bit smaller, yep, there you go, those disappear. Whereas over here on Unity 2021, first of all, there are no separate windows. So if you go into Window, you do not see the Graph Inspector or the Graph Variables. So the only window you have is just the Graph window. And this one always shows the Graph Inspector and the Variables window all the time. So regardless of resolution, regardless of the size of this window, no matter how big or small you make it will always show those. Then there's also a few small changes on the nodes themselves. So for example, in Unity 2020, you can add a branch node. So this one takes a condition and runs something if it's true and something else if it's false. Whereas over here on Unity 2021, instead of being named branch, it is named an if. So again, the same thing, Boolean with a true and a false, but now instead of a branch, it's named an if. So again, the functionality is only exactly the same, it's just a name change. Another node difference is over here on Unity 2020, you have what's called the self node. So this one represents the current game object, whereas in version 2021, this is instead called the this node. So again, they represent the same thing. This one is still this same game object. So previously named self, and now it's this. Then another difference is when you add a component, you make it a state machine. So this one again, so these ones are still named the same. They're both named the state machine. The main difference is again, this one is called the state macro, whereas this one is a state graph. And as you create the state graph, the graph window is just the same. So in 2020 and 2021, they'll look exactly the same. Now another difference is when working with visual scripting through C#, and the differences are on the namespaces. So over here on Unity 2020, you add using Bolt. That's what you add. Whereas in version 2021, you add using unity.visualscripting. Another change is also the new 2021 visual scripting also has some better built-in support for the new input system. Okay, so those are the main changes. As you can see, they're all pretty minor, so every tutorial that you can find that was made using Bolt, you can very easily get it working with the 2021 visual scripting version. If you want to learn more about visual scripting, check out my complete course where you'll learn how to make 3 complete games, starting off with a simple platformer game, then moving on to a more complex action RPG with tons of features like multiple weapons, enemies, dungeons, shops, skills, and so on. And finally, the last game, which is a really awesome FPS that teaches you how to use visual scripting in 3D with tons of weapons, a really nice hookshot ability, and a really awesome boss fight. Check out the full course with a link in the description. Alright, hope that's useful. Check out these videos to learn some more. Thanks to these awesome Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.